Hello and welcome to Fatter Future 10. I am Justin Callahan and with me is
Eve Williams. How's it going today?
Oh man, it is going good. We've got some good topics today, I think. Some very interesting ones.
We have three good ones. We're going to dive into the Apple changing of the internal processing units of their computers. Following that, we're going to talk about the new feature from Microsoft 365 called Productivity Score. And then I think we're going to wrap up with a little bit of Wonder Woman talk. So we'll say anything else about that. We'll just save that one for the surprise topic at the end.
I like it. I think that's going to be fun. All right. Well, I guess we should kick off with the first topic then, huh?
I think the fatter future is Apple bringing the processor, component in-house? Is this fatter future?
Yeah, this is pretty wild. So what this is basically, out in the world, there's two types of processors that most people interact with. And the processor is basically the brain of the computer. It does the computations to make everything run smoothly, to process through, hence the name. And it basically comes into two wheelhouses. We have the traditional x86 processor. It's what's basically in every computer that you know about, your desktop, your laptop, the servers you connect to at work. It's that traditional type of processor. Intel and AMD are the big ones, and those are just there. Everything else are the ARM processors. These are what's in your phones, your tablets, a lot of Internet of Things devices, and those have been around for a while, but there's been a few attempts. Microsoft's actually done one with a Surface. There have been other attempts by other manufacturers that to bring an ARM processor into these computers and these laptops to kind of get some of the benefits of ARM processors while, still, maybe not as heavy powered, but, things where other things are more important, like battery life and mobility and things like that. So this is actually Apple's crack at it.
Is this a case where Apple's just looking to improve profitability some more because they make the processor now, or is this really a platform decision for some sort of future benefit or current benefit?
Well, it's really interesting about that is because, Apple's not new to the processor game. They've been building their own iPhone and iPad chips for a while now. And so I think what they're looking at doing is, it's a little bit of getting rid of the reliance, if you will, getting rid of those required contracts with Intel and AMD. But then also it's more efficient for them.
Intel's not going anywhere. It's not like they have to worry about a supply chain issue or something with Intel.
Well, exactly. But it's also efficiency, too, because when you have the hardware and the software, you can make those things mesh and work just a little bit more smoothly than let's say you're waiting on the latest chip from Intel to come in before you can even start to work on the software of Mac OS or whatever software you're working on to make things work compatibly.
Well, I think it's probably important to comment at this moment that it's not like changing the tires on your car, right? I mean, this idea of changing the processor, because it's so married to the actual operating system, in this case, Mac OS, Apple had to actually create a version of Mac OS to run on the new processor, right?
Well, they actually what they did was they made a program that actually compounds on top of the processor to translate and to run traditional programs right off of these different CPUs. So basically a translator, innovatively, I believe, I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's called Rosetta. So very much so on that, trying to basically just run these programs. And that was the big catch, is that in the other attempts from other vendors, there's always been, well, technically we can run these traditional programs, but they're not going to run nearly as well as they would on a traditional laptop or such. So that experience is worse. And that's where that's where Apple has really that's the game changer, is that their experience now with these devices being out in the wild, it's almost as smooth as running it right off of a traditional laptop.
Aren't they claiming better? Aren't they saying it's supposed to be a better experience, better battery life, better performance?
Well, and that's the thing, is that you're getting all of those perks with none of the downside. So traditionally the ARM processors have been better battery life, less storage, less space taken up inside of the device itself, and lastly, we've got a whole lot of lost my train of thought there, but we've got a whole lot of positives there, but we have none of the negatives. And because the biggest negative was this interoperability with some of these traditional programs. So everything's all fun and games until you
Okay,
try to launch Adobe.
so Apple's making the chip. The prices are staying the
Mm-hmm.
same, right? They're not saying this is going to be a cheaper, but they're saying more battery life, more performance,
Right.
and they've already been making some of the other components. So is this fad or future? This is where we're at now. Fad or future? Apple continuing
Cool.
to internalize the product?
Well, I definitely say that this is future. Apple backed this change in a big, big way. They did not, introduce one minor product with it. They went big with multiple devices switching over to this, and that's not something that you can change back very easily. So I'm going to say it's future. They're invested in this at this point.
I'm going to agree with you on future, and I'm just going to put it simply that Apple's always been an experience company, and to that extent, they want to control everything that has anything to do with your experience using their products, and this fits right in with that persona of controlling experience. It's the heart of the computer. It's the piece that allows them to ultimately optimize the operating system to the processor architecture. So I'm going to say future as well.
And I really think people that prefer that environment have giving that control to Apple for every factor for a better, smoother experience. I think they're going to love that. Me personally, I like the ability to go in there and tweak and play around with stuff. So I'm not sure I'm the biggest fan for it, but it'll be interesting to see nonetheless.
All right, let's move on to topic number 2. Microsoft 365's new feature called Productivity Score. Have you heard of this, Justin?
So I heard a lot of, big waves and big topics coming out in the news recently about this. But from what I was hearing and from what I think you were saying earlier, it sounds like more or less this has been around for a while.
Yeah, it's been around they've always given you the ability to see kind of at a user level what activity is going on. And that's been there. But when they turned on Productivity Score, they did a couple things differently. And I don't know if they're paying for that a little bit. Number one, they made it something that you had to turn on inside your administrator panel. So you have to go in there and actually say enable Productivity Score, as if enabling it's going to do something different than what was happening before. So again, I'm not really sure what's different, but you have to actually enable it inside your tenant space to allow it to do the data collection. Number two, they publicized it. So again, the other reports have been there for a long time, but they felt like they wanted to really announce this Productivity Score feature and kind of underscore how they feel it's going to help companies maximize the use of the Microsoft 365 feature set.
Well, and as I understand it, some of the things that feed into this productivity score are very much relevant in this day and age, with people working remotely more than ever. From my understanding, they have some very key metrics, such as time spent in your inbox, time spent, in Teams messaging, where they're seeing actual the usage and the efficiency, I guess, if you will, of certain users, which on one side might be great. That gives managers another tool that's built into their environment to be able to see which staff members are, thriving, or maybe others that are struggling and could use some assistance in the remote world. But at the same time, that's a whole lot of monitoring and a whole lot of data collection that some users might not be totally a fan of.
Well, and that's exactly what we talk about. I mean, not to toot our own horn, but in our managed services that we help our customers with, and we do our quarterly reviews with customers, we can already tell them who did how many chat messages, who did how many one-on-one meetings. We have that without Productivity Score, and it's done at a user level such that we can show who are internal champions of it, who might need some training. So it is a value add at that point. But when you get to that kind of minutia or extraneous data of how long they spent sitting on inbox or how long they spent in a particular channel, at some point, are you not micromanaging things?
Definitely agree. And that's where, maybe some people's fear of letting go, of letting that micromanagement go, could be a detriment. And that's where I think a lot of the backlash was starting to come from,
It's hard to imagine you're going to go to your people and say, okay, everybody, you're spending too much time in the break room channel. We need to bring that down to about no more than 15 minutes per day. I don't know. I'm not sure what you do with all this extra information they're giving you. But has it been all positive for Microsoft with this new feature?
Definitely not. And the downside is, I think the measurements or the responses would be a little bit more measured. Maybe not to tell Microsoft's marketing team what to do, but they might have presented it slightly differently. Again, like you're saying, it's a natural evolution of the data, algorithms and information that they already have, as opposed to it's this new heavy-handed tool that you have. I think the reaction was just like, it's that knee-jerk, whoa, what's Microsoft's watching everything I do, every email I touch. It's just kind of that forced being awareness of it that I don't really think they thought through kind of the side effects there.
There could be it could be a slippery slope in that, people also begin to question, oh yeah, maybe I have too much in Microsoft. So that could be the other side of this coin that we haven't seen yet. So the fatter future, I think, proposition here is this case of building tools to allow you to really dig into what your employees are doing in the Microsoft 365 environment. Is that the future, or is this just a fad and Microsoft's going to back off of this kind of concept of more data mining of people?
So I'm going to be straight up. This is the future. And actually, I completely forgot about mentioning this earlier in our conversation, but some relatively breaking news from, I think it was late yesterday. But in the competitors area, SalesForce, a huge player in CRM and management, has officially made notices to buy Slack, which is Microsoft's Teams competitor. And so that the way that Salesforce just handles CRM and data management and algorithms, that combined with a huge messaging platform and communication platform, I mean, I would not be surprised if in 6 months to a year we see these similar kinds of things come out, across the industry, not just for Microsoft. They might just be there first because they have all the bits in place right now.
Okay, interesting. I'm going to say fad. I think Microsoft went a little bit off the reservation by letting people deep dive into individual users. And I think they're going to have to back away from this position. There's one thing to get useful metrics on how the environment's being used. It's another thing to really dig into that and make it visible. And again, I think there is a potential backlash in terms of just how much am I trusting in one place and what are they doing with that information. So Microsoft has to be very careful here, I think. But we'll have to see what happens. And I think, Salesforce buying Slack, that's probably a bigger sign of what has happened post-pandemic with the adoption of Teams. Microsoft is onboarding people like crazy with Teams, and I'm sure it's killing Slack's business model. But let's see what happens next year. We'll have to bring this topic back.
For sure.
All right, let's move into our last one for today. Wonder Woman. So I don't know if you heard, Justin, but Wonder Woman's actually going to premiere in December. I believe it's December 24th, and it is not going to be in theaters. It's going to be on HBO Max.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
We got to feature this because there's a lot of new movies I want to see. The new James Bond. We got Black Widow. We've got some great movies coming that do not have release dates because of theaters. Can you tell me, fad or future, about releasing onto streaming platforms?
Oh, well, and this is huge because we've seen this before, and this has been a topic of conversation for about this past 6 months. One of the biggest things that started in the early months of the pandemic was Trolls World Tour. It was a kids movie, but it was a popular one. It was going to be a summer blockbuster, and that actually got released direct to purchase, where for I think it was $20, $30, you could just buy the movie, and that was its release. And that caused a lot of people to give pause. But at the same point, that was a kids movie. That wasn't massive blockbusters. And what you're saying right here, this is Wonder Woman. This is a huge franchise. This is like, $500 million or more. Easy. We're talking like that Avengers level movie. And to say that they're going streaming, especially on one platform,
well, we also saw this with Mulan, right? So Disney released Mulan on Disney streaming, but they made you pay a premium for it, $29.99, I think it was, which we watched, and it was a good movie. But we wanted to try something out just to see how it was working, so we did endorse that.
I boycotted that purely out of the process or the theory, because you're paying $30 to own the privilege of streaming it, but if you disconnected your Disney service, you lost that purchase. There
Well,
was like, I mean,
Amazon's doing the same thing. I made the mistake
yeah.
of, instead of renting a movie on Amazon, I actually bought it. And immediately I was admonished by a family member that, hey, you know that if you don't have an Amazon subscription, you lose that movie. And I had no idea. So I guess this is a common theme with the streaming platforms. But again, I think circling back, is it a case where the major movie releases and you pay a premium to see it on a streaming platform, or like you're saying, you got a big production, hundreds of millions of dollars, and they're just going to let you watch it at no extra cost for the gain of what, new subscribers?
And that's honestly a big play too. I mean, because that's always been the double-edged sword of these subscription models. Game of Thrones was probably one of the biggest examples. When traditional HBO One was around, they actually had announcements where they had a massive uptick in subscribers when the new season started. 3 months later, that tick just dropped right off when people canceled their subscriptions. So HBO and AT&T by proxy betting the fact that this is going to convince enough people to sign up and then stay on their platform long enough for them to make the money. I mean, that's a very interesting question, and I don't know. I think people are getting exhausted with these subscriptions, especially streaming services, and people are like, I'm going to subscribe to one or two or maybe three. Am I going to really subscribe to? Is HBO Max going to be one of them? Who knows?
Yeah, well, they've got me for right now because definitely got to. So it's going to be a movie release night in our house, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, it's also, I think there's also this pent up question too, is like they kept pushing these movies back. I mean, we saw that with Christopher Nolan's Tenet. We saw that with a number of ones. Is like they got blockbusters. They need to get out the door, to keep this momentum in the industry. And so I will say this though, is like the three that we just mentioned, Trolls World Tour, Mulan, and Wonder Woman, they all have come at this with significantly different approaches. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be very interesting to see which one, is declared kind of like the most successful, when all the analysts filter in and all the math gets done.
All right. So where do you stand, fat or future?
I think this is going to continue. This locked in, this exclusives to a streaming service. I think this is going to be definitely the future. I'm future all the way.
But I want to be very pointed in this fat or future. Is it the future for major movie releases on a streaming platform?
I don't think that.
Even if we had a short fallback to theaters, let's just say, I don't know, Q1 2021 theaters are hot thing to do. Do you think we end up by the end of next year coming back to where we see major releases coming out on streaming, or the theaters keep?
Okay, then if that's the case, then I'm going to actually change back. I'm going to go to fat. I think for some movies you can't beat it. I've got a beautiful setup at home. I've got my projector and everything. But when the Star Wars film comes out or Jurassic World film comes out, I'm going to a theater. It's not a question. It's that experience that you just cannot change or you can never match in the house. And the big ones like this one, if I could safely go to a theater, I would.
So. It's funny. This is a chance where I wish we had something in between fat or future, but I guess obviously it would undermine the whole point of the show. But I'm going to go ahead and I'll stick with future because I think there's a place I could imagine where the companies that own the streaming platforms, so even if it's not Netflix or AT&T or whoever might be in the future, but they become the production houses of the future. I mean, you're still going to have your theaters or your studios that are doing movies and stuff, but they're the platform distribution platforms become these streaming environments. And I think that's going to happen because I think the prevalence of mobility and watching movies wherever you want, whenever you want, is going to outpace what the theaters can really keep up with and experience. But that's a longer term future, but we'll see what happens.
Or then we go full dystopian, and a year from now, we're walking into a Netflix-owned theater where we scan our subscription and we get to watch the Netflix exclusive blockbuster of the next, like, Mandalorian the movie, right? That's the full.
Right. Yeah. You have a good point. Movie theaters becoming flex spaces. That's already been, AMC's tested that in certain markets by letting companies just rent the whole theater out for $100. I mean, they've done some things just to get people inside their theaters, and I think theaters is a flex space. Yeah, it could happen.
Very true.
All right. Good stuff.
Wow.
Good episode.
Very good. Never a dull moment, and I'm sure all of these we're going to be wanting to circle back around to in a couple of months just to see where it all pans out.
Yep. Our next episode will be in 2021. If you like our videos, please click subscribe to stay up to date on the latest episode. If you have any topic suggestions, post them in the comments below, or feel free to shoot us an email from our website. And as always, thanks for watching. We appreciate your interest and look forward to seeing you next year. Happy holidays.
Have a great 2020. Bye.